I got a review here for you of the XCSOURCE step filter ring set. This set is dirt cheap. It's like 14 bucks for 20 of these things, whereas usually I get rings for, I don't know, 5-6 bucks a piece, so they're not that expensive to begin with, but this really sets the price bar really low. So how are they? Overall, they are pretty nice. And if you're not familiar with step rings to begin with, basically you've got your lens, that's the word. You got your lens here. It's got filter threads for use of things like lens hoods and more notably lens filters like UV, NDs, graduated, polarizers and all that. A little dusty. And sometimes you have a bunch of different lenses and they don't all have the same filter sizes, and you don't want to go buy out filters for every single size. So you can get step rings to adapt smaller to larger or larger to smaller. I should say that the step down rings, as demonstrated by this half of the set, unscrew up, they step things down. As you can see, exaggerated like that. Obviously, you wouldn't want to put a smaller filter on this side or any particular size lens. Sometimes you can get away with a little bit, but usually, especially if it's wide angle, you can see the filter or the edge of it inside the frame because this is supposed to be this size for a reason. While they are used for certain things, they're definitely less commonly used than the step up rings because of the obvious reason that it makes more sense. You want to use a bigger filter on the lens so you don't see the filter or the edges of it in your frame. So going on to the quality, the lettering, nice and visible. There we go. Look at that nice, beautiful lettering. Sweet. So that's nice. It's very clear and crisp. The quality of the metal seems fine. I did notice that compared to my Goja brand, which is this one right here, the Goja is a little smoother. The finish on this is a little more of a texture to it. And I did notice when trying the same lens out on the Goja and the XCSOURCE, the XCSOURCE does feel a little bit more gritty and a little bit more rubbing going on when it's being screwed on. And it does seem to have the tendency to get a little more stuck on there if I tighten it up. You shouldn't ever tighten a filter, a step ring or a filter too much, obviously. That's bad mojo. So even with this, even more so, it seems to have a bit more tendency to get stuck and not want to come back out versus a more expensive ring. So one of the things you could do, although it is controversial to say, put a tiny bit of petroleum jelly or a little bit of oil on a Q-tip and very little bit put it on the step rings filter, the threads. Now that's controversial because, yeah, it's not really a good idea to have oils or anything by your lens. You don't want to get that on there. It's a pain to get off. Don't want to get your fingers and all that. So tread lightly on that idea. I have done it, but very, very tiny little bit, and I know that I have it on there so I don't go touching the threads, and I'm careful with it. So, but you are of course buying something inexpensive, so I give you that option as a workaround just in case you find it to be very sticky and gritty. Now, the other thing to consider is that, depending on how good their quality control is, you want to make sure that they all fit together properly. These were actually packaged each individually in different little pouches, so I took them out of all that and assembled it into this, which they actually show on the website as totally assembled, which is kind of funny looking, but at least I can see that they all fit together properly. And you want to be careful about that because these are of course metal. If you have a lens that has plastic threads, if you force that on, it's not properly done or it's damaged at all, you could ruin, cross thread your poor lens's little filter thread. So you want to be careful with that. The set I got looks pretty darn nice, but again, you want to make sure that your set was properly quality controlled, so do this to them before you try it on your lens. I didn't buy these though as my primary filter, as my primary step rings. I have always bought individuals because I just wanted to go from a specific size. Obviously these are going from little steps. You can go from bigger steps when you buy specifics. This is not going to include every single thing that's going to have this. Like this is a 62 to 77. I can achieve the same thing with this set, but I'd have to use several of the rings together. So I get these specifically for the lenses and filters I want to use, and I want to have these around kind of just that in case maybe I'm borrowing a lens, maybe I'm renting something, or I get a new filter in and I don't have the specific ring I want. At least I've got a whole bunch of options to make something work right off the bat. So I think for that price, this is great for that use, but even if you just need general step rings, I think it's worth the investment. If you have a certain step size that you know you're gonna use regularly, I would say, you know, spend a couple bucks, get that one that you're gonna use very often, and then get these for the ones you use less often. That's my recommendation, and I'm sticking to it. So these are the XCSOURCE step down, step up filter, step down, step up ring set.